We're back here at the intersection of faith and politics. Wall Builders Live with David Barton. Our guest today, Dr. Kevin Gutzman. You can visit his website, kevingutzman.com. You can get the book, Who Killed the Constitution, and learn more about these things. Dr. Gutzman, the Constitutional Convention, if it is called, walk us through that process of how the states would call for it, how many states, all of that.
Well, the Constitution says in Article 5 that there are two ways to amend the Constitution. That is, two formal ways. Of course, there's really three ways. One, the most common way is that a federal court declares today that the Constitution means the opposite of what it meant yesterday. That happens all the time.
Unfortunately, but yeah.
But the two formal ways to amend the Constitution are by having two-thirds of each House of Congress propose an amendment to the states and then having three-quarters of the states ratify. That's one method. The other method is by having three-quarters of the states call for a constitutional convention, which then could propose amendments that three-quarters of the states had to ratify. So what I'm saying is the reason we have this provision that the states can call a convention is precisely to get around having Congress be involved in the process. You don't want Congress to have to be involved in the process of reining in the Congress.
Right.
It seems to me that's a big part of the problem. I think the judiciary and the executive are bigger problems, but in this area of the Congress grabbing more and more state legislative authority, obviously the Congress isn't going to correct that problem. And so when it comes to these gun laws, for example, the fact that the Congress is undertaking gun regulation that it has no constitutional authority to undertake is not going to be corrected by an amendment coming from Congress. So you could have three-quarters of states call for an amendment convention, and I understand that right now we need one or two more states to do so. And then there would be a convention called by Congress. It would have no discretion. It would have to call a convention. And the convention then could have proposed amendments just as the Philadelphia Convention proposed the current Constitution.
Okay, wait, time out, Dr. Gutzman. I must have been sleeping under a rock. You're saying that we've already had enough states that only one or two more calling for it, we could have the convention?
That's right.
No kidding. See, nobody's going to report on this, right? I mean, you don't see any reporting about this.
No, well, a lot of these calls have been outstanding for decades.
So they don't have to be time-specific. They just have to say, we want a convention.
No, the amendment process is not time-specific. That's why we could have an amendment proposed in 1789, written by James Madison, and only finally become part of the Constitution by being ratified in 1992.
Wow. So do you have on
your... The 27th Amendment took 203 years to ratify.
Yeah, that was one of the original 12, right?
That's right.
Yeah, so now do you have on your website by any chance a list of the states that have called?
No, I do not.
Okay, is there a place that people can go to get that? So they,
no,
just so they know,
because
I'm sure we got some listeners that are saying, "Man, that's something I'd be interested in. I want to know if my state has done it yet." And I'm wondering if these, a lot of these laws and resolutions, not just the one Montana's doing, but and a lot of states have been doing 10th Amendment resolutions. Those types of things seem to be, in my opinion, a good education factor for the general public, even if it doesn't have, the power of law, it doesn't have the force of law. It's still waking people up to know the difference and what needs to be done. You agree?
Well, actually, I was on the Glenn Beck show with Andrew Napolitano discussing this matter with the state senator from Tennessee who had sponsored their gun law. And Judge Napolitano and I, of course, instantly agreed that the first time a federal judge got hold of this, he would declare it to be unconstitutional, which it isn't, but he would declare it to be. And so then the question was, well, do you think that this serves any function? And I said, yes, I think that people need at every moment to have pointed out to them that much of what the federal government does is unconstitutional, and surely this does do that.
Yeah.
So I think another thing that people need to be aware of is that 27th Amendment that was ratified in 1992 had just kind of been sitting on the books, having been recommended to the states by Congress for 200 years, when a guy who worked for the Texas state legislature realized that and undertook himself to conduct a publicity campaign contacting legislators in about a dozen different states. He was responsible for dusting that thing off and finally having it ratified by, I think it was a dozen more states over a period of about 8 years. So,
yeah, he in fact, he worked in the office 2 doors down from me when I was a legislator. And he
right?
He used to tell me the story all the time. And I thought, wow, man, that's pretty cool. Got a piece of history working right here 2 doors down from me.
Well, so my point was going to be that there's no reason why an individual could not undertake to have his state issue a call for a constitutional convention, or undertake to have other states do the same by similar publicity campaign. I think that people need to have pointed out to them that the main kind of stumbling block to this whole idea, which is a conservative notion that it's dangerous, should be brought up against the the plain fact of life in America right now that the Constitution is just wantonly ignored every day. There's nothing to lose because the Constitution is effectively being treated as a dead letter by all three branches of the federal government. So,
well, and it may be the only way of getting, and I have to admit, this is an issue I switched my position on.
Me too.
I used to be anti-term limits, and now I'm for them. And this convention may be the only way that you could get it done, because you're certainly never going to get Congress to do it themselves. Dr. Gutzman, very, very interesting. Last question for you. I'm assuming, I know for me, I'm wondering if for you, this is the most interested you've ever seen the people out there in our lifetimes in the Constitution and in the process. People are coming out of the woodwork and wanting to learn more. I'm seeing bumper stickers saying, read the Constitution. I've never seen this before.
It is a nice thing. I think it's too bad that it took what we've gone through to make this happen, and I hope it's not simply a partisan phenomenon, because one motif of Tom Woods in my book, Who Killed the Constitution, is that it's not only Democrats and it's not only liberals, it's not only the president or the judges that behave this way. There's a bipartisan consensus that you can just ignore the idea that the federal government is a limited government. So
yes, it's got to be about the principles, not the parties, no question.
That's exactly right.
So, and I guess that leads me to one more last question. Do you think this is more likely a time to accomplish something like this than ever before? You've got the Tea Parties and the people motivated. They're looking for something to do and a place to get involved. KevinGutzman.com is the website. Go check it out. Get the book, What Killed the Constitution?
Who Killed the Constitution?
Who Killed the Constitution? Professor, appreciate your time very much, man.
Glad to be here.
Thank you for what you do, and thank you for coming on.
You're welcome.
We'll be right